Thanks for staying with us. This is TVC Breakfast. Let's now get to our conversation segment. Terrorism and rising insecurity remains a major concern across Nigeria. And in the face of persistent attacks and threats, Kaduna State Governor Sani is calling for urgent reforms in the nation's security architecture. TV host and columnist Sam Omashe had an eye-exclusive interview with him where he emphasized the need for effective collaboration between federal and state structures to strengthen intelligence gathering and restore citizens' confidence in government's capacity to protect them. Have a look.
Your Excellency Governor Sani of Kaduna State, giving us some sort of report card of your performance in the state, and you pivoted to security. But tell us about your own multifaceted approach to it. You said, well, non-kinetic is a function of poor governance. But the thing is that you cannot bring peace just by holding the guns. So tell us, in a nutshell, what you just told an enraptured audience at the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs.
What we're talking about the issue of security generally. Like I said, when we came as a government in 2023, first, we took our time to look at the situation holistically. And what we found out is that there were a lot of issues that need to be considered. Number one is to know the symptoms and drivers of the insecurity within our communities. And of course, to know how we can approach it. So the first thing we did as a government is looking at the situation, like I said, holistically. But the first thing we did is to look at the State Security Council of the state that comprises the security agencies, the traditional rulers, and of course expand it also to bring in the religious leaders as well as the community leaders into the whole equation. And what we found out was that at that time there were a lot of trust deficit between the communities and governments. And what do I mean by that is that there are a lot of people within those communities that were frontline local governments. When you come to Kaduna, like Biningwari, Giwa, Igabi, Zangwan Katab, Kajuru, Chukun, Kachea, and I'm talking about mostly within Kaduna Central and Southern Kaduna. And what we found out was that at that time, a lot of people completely lost touch with government in the area of providing for them. What I mean is that there are a lot of economic issues, because I was surprised when I saw the number of people that were kidnapped when I came in. The report I received was about over 252 people were kidnapped before we came in. And I was surprised that how could anybody come to a community, kidnap people without the knowledge of anyone within that community. So that was the first thing we looked into. So, but overall, I think the religious leaders and community leaders play a massive role in addressing the problem, because we made it clear to all of them that they need to be the drivers of that process. And I must give credit to the Emir Biningwari. Biningwari is one of the major local governments that had the issue of insecurity. That was why I made an example of the fact that when President Bola Tinubu came precisely on the 12th December 2022, we had to escort him with about 30 armored vehicles to Biningwari, provided by the then GOC, or Mechanized Division, led Labaja, for us to take Aswaju Bola Tinubu to Biningwari for a visit during the campaign. But today, Biningwari and many other local governments today, like I said, you can go there without a police escort. And the reason is simple. that process that happens in Kaduna, which we call Kaduna model, was not an isolated issue that was only handled by the state government. And that was the beauty of synergy between the state and the federal government. As a governor, you have to understand the limitation of a state governor constitutionally when it comes to issue of security. So what did we do? We first sat down with the religious leaders, community leaders, headed by the Emir Binungwali in that case, and he told me clearly that most of those so-called bandits kidnapping people within Binungwali, most of them were born within the community. And meaning there must be a solution to the problem. And I told him at that time, as a government, we're not going to get involved directly because of the trust deficit. It must be a holistic issue that must be driven by the community themselves. So that's the reason why I was telling people that in Kaduna, we don't have to pay a bandits. As a governor, I've never been sat down with any bandits. And I can't identify a bandits. But today we have peace because it's a process driven on by the community themselves. And that is number one. Number two, you cannot do that without also addressing the issue holistically. What I mean by holistic issue is a lot of issue has to do with economy. People in that area, when I came, 532 schools were closed down. Major markets along Beningwari, Giwa, Aziz were closed for 7 to 8 years. Today, when we open the market, all our schools have been open, our hospitals have been open, people can go to do their normal activities. The economic activities have really been revitalized. Economic prosperity have reached to the people. And that is the reason why today, from Beningwari to Lagos, in a day we have about 20 to 30 trucks of cattle and other animals being transported from Beningwari, that was a no-go area 3 years ago, to Lagos. The markets that we opened, the grains market, in last year alone, one of the correspondents that came to Kano to do the investigative journalism, that's Babajide Otitije, he met few of them. Some of them made $1 billion, 500 million, 600 million, because we opened the grains market that was closed for 5 to 6 years also. So for me, when you look at this issue, is the lack of trust between the people themselves and the government. That is one area when we say non-kinetic approach. We're not talking about negotiating with bandits. We're talking about good governance. Because good governance is #1 aspect of non-kinetic approach. But at the same time, we cannot do this without the support of the security generally. And that's why I believe the role played by the National Security Advisor, the service chiefs also play a major role, because we made it clear that our approach was carrot and stick. Well, we allow the communities to lead in this process. We also did not suspend military action entirely. That is the reason why we also encourage the security agencies in Kaduna through our State Security Council. We are funding them, buying them equipments, buying them vehicles, and all the technology they needed for their operations. So as I'm talking to you, we have invested a lot in supporting all the security agencies in Kaduna, from the military to police to DSS. So we have two approaches, one kinetic and one non-kinetic. That is why I said it at the beginning, is carrot and stick, and it's yielding. And people are asking us, what is about Kaduna model? Kaduna model in a nutshell is not the absence of military operations, no. It's about focusing more on good governance. The poverty level in Benungwari, when I came in, we did a survey. Benungwari, Giwa, Chukun, Kajulu, Kaulu, these are the front-line governments. Zangon, Katab, Kachia, and even Kaura. The poverty level at that time was about 70 to 75%. Today, the people have gone back to the farm. We did a survey just 2 months ago, and I will share it to the public. The situation has changed drastically from 80% poverty today to about 40-something%. We are still making progress. At the beginning, I thought we might be aiming for 60%, but I was shocked that we are achieving this kind of result because, remember, we came up with an executive order on financial inclusion that have brought about 2.5 million underserved, poor and vulnerable back to financial services sector. What does that mean? All our interventions today in Kaduna State, whether through supporting the smallholder farmers, SMEs, households, most of this money is going to the right people at the grassroots level who are now having their businesses flourishing, their economic prosperity improving. That's what's happening.
There's also something I drew from it because of the 2.5 million indigenes that you've given credits, opened account for them. It shows that what they need are just opportunities to be meaningful.
Yeah.
That it is not so much that they want big money, they just want to be removed from a life of idleness.
Yeah.
Now, how do you now relate that to the skills acquisition and all of that? And then how do you now isolate Kaduna from what is happening in other states, even along your borders?
Kaduna today, because of most of these successes we achieved, reducing the level of insecurity, making our youth busy by giving them opportunities. And that is why we decided to now build skill development centers in Kaduna, where we are today leading in skill-based education. And that was the institutions that were opened by President Bola Tinubu when he came in. I recall when President Bola Tinubu came, even the Executive Secretary of National Board for Technical Education, Professor Idris Bogaji, as well as the Minister of Education, made it clear to the President that he was shocked when he saw the level of equipments and facilities in our Institute of Vocational Training and Skill Development in Kaduna. He made it clear that they are more equipped than any federal university of technology in Nigeria, simply because the certification we are getting from MBTE today will give them the opportunity to work both locally and globally. The last time I was talking with Aliko Dangote, most of the people working in his factory, you see that some of them are not from Nigeria because we are lacking this. We have deficit in the skills. And today, Kaduna being the leading hub of skill development in Nigeria, we are not only equipping our youth with skill, we want them to even work anywhere in Nigeria and globally. And that is the reason why when you look at the recent TVET recruitment in Nigeria, when you go to the portal, you realize that Kaduna is a leading state in terms of the number of youths that have enrolled in this TVET program, simply because we have the infrastructure, we have the institutions, and we have the facilities. We are leading with over 98,000 youths from Kaduna. No state has come close to us. That is by the numbers already released by the Minister of Education. So why we're doing that is simply because we realize that not only in Kaduna, but the whole nation, there are a lot of deficit when it comes to skill. And not only that, recall, we made a lot of investment in Panteka Market. Panteka Market houses 38,000 artisans today, and we collaborated, partnered with MBT for them to have certification that can allow them to work anywhere in Nigeria and globally. So today, Panteka Market in Kaduna is the biggest and largest informal skill hub in the whole of Africa. When we came in 2023, the #1 informal skill hub in the whole of Africa is in Kenya. That's Juankali of Kenya. Today we have overtaken Juankali because we made a lot of investment in Panteka market to be #1 in Africa. So all these things are things that I believe when people can see that they have something to do, they can see that the economic prosperity, particularly at the rural areas, is improving. You are reducing the issue of insecurity because, like I said, the insecurity in the Northwest cannot be unconnected with the issue of economic crisis we're facing in the northwestern part of Nigeria, where 70% of the people live below poverty line. And
you made the point that in the lecture that people should distinguish the security problem in the Northwest and that of the Northeast. And it tends to be, collapsed together in some kind of single narrative. What do you, how can you expand?
I think it is important. That is the reason why it's important that we always look at the situation holistically, because the issue of insecurity in the Northeast, the history, it's about ideology, it's about, that's why it's called Boko Haram. Okay, when you come to the northwestern part of Nigeria, as of 2014, when the Boko Haram was at its peak, there was nothing called insurgency in the Northwest. In fact, it was around 2016, the issue of cattle rustling and kidnapping started, not the full-blown banditry. But why did it escalate? It's simply because they see the North as a recruitment ground. That's why I gave example of Beningwali. These people are recruited within the communities because of poverty, hopelessness, lack of education. So, but addressing the issue must also be looking at the issue holistically. The Northwest, like I said, is more of an economic issue. The Northeast is largely ideological issue of Boko Haram. And we didn't know about that when the whole issue started in the North, probably because there was a kind of misrepresentation of the issues by successive governments and leaders at that time, not sitting down on the table to understand the issue holistically. We just assumed the situation is the same. And that was the reason why there was no any solution at that time until it escalated to the level it is today, which I believe more effort needs to be put. You made mention of the fact that we're sharing borders with other frontline states. Of course. I just met the director of the state securities of all the states in the Northwest a few days ago in Kaduna. They came to visit me. Not only the Northwest, but even other states within the North Central, like Niger, Nasarawa, even FCT. They came to my office and I sat with them, all the director of security services. And I made it clear to all of them, we cannot address issue in isolation. We have achieved a lot in Kaduna, but there are, if you see, most of the flashes we're having in Kaduna is along the borders of those states. The borders. That was what I informed the director of the state security services of various states. And for them to go back, and I was also happy, the Director General of the SSS, Mr. Tosin, was with us. He briefed us some few weeks ago. I made mention of Kaduna model, believing that it is important for everybody to see the template. Because for me, in Kaduna, we even had more complex issue than other states because we had two issues to address. Number one, the issue of ethno-religious crisis, which we have resolved, then the banditry. So ours was even more complex. But if we can achieve what we achieved in Kaduna, just a few days ago, I had the chairman of the CAN and Northern Nigeria, Reverend Hayab, made mentioning of the fact that the situation in Kaduna has really subsided and everything is now becoming better. So for me, it's very important. So when we are hearing this kind of comments by the community leaders, religious leaders, meaning we are doing something. But the most important thing I want to say is, not politicizing the issue of security. That's the message I was able to send to the director of the state securities when they came. I made it clear. We cannot tolerate few elements within our society for political reason to continue to undermine the heart for democracy by politicizing the issue of insecurity. Insecurity issue is sensitive to be politicized. And the reason why in Kano we made it clear that there must be zero tolerance for insecurity merchants is simply because to address this issue, one factor you need to understand, and every governor must key to this. We have insecurity merchants everywhere. They only benefit when there's insecurity. Today in Nigeria, you hear a lot of people in the television, even going to the essence of working against the integrity, the image of their own country, just for political gain. And for me, what I feel is uncalled for, highly irresponsible, is simply because at the end of the day, who are going to be the victims of all these issues are the masses, the less privileged, the vulnerable people. A lot of people talking about this, most of the children are not even in Nigeria. Exactly. They live in the comfort of GRA, living together with Muslims and Christians. But today they talk about insecurity, politicizing insecurity, simply because they thought it's the only way for them to achieve their political agendas. And for me, I kept saying, for some of us that fought for this democracy, we wonder where most of these people claiming they're Democrats. And if you ask me, most of them are anti-democratic elements within a society who have no knowledge of how we come about this democracy. But for some of us that have paid our dues, fought for democracy, for in terms of democracy in Nigeria, we believe anybody, like I told the director assessors, we must not allow anyone undermine our country and democracy, particularly putting the underprivileged and vulnerable people within the society in danger because of politics.